Pointing win. Are there any significant discoveries that were discovered by accident? One unusually busy Easter weekend in 1982 at the Royal Perth Hospital in Australia, a young trainee doctor forgot to check his bacterial culture plates and left them in the incubator. The lab technicians would normally throw out the cultures after 2 days, because anything that didn't grow in 2 days didn't exist. But this time, the doctor received an excited call from the microbiologist. When he returned to the lab, he found translucent islands of bacterial colonies growing on the agar. The bacterium was a new species that had never been described by microbiologists before, Helicobacter pylori, a fortuitous discovery after many failed attempts which eventually awarded him, Barry Marshall, and his colleague Robin Warren the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine 2005. When Dr. Warren had examined biopsies of patients with gastric ulcers and stomach cancer, he found a hazy layer over the ulcers in the stomach. Under the microscope, he saw tiny organisms in that layer and also observed a link between the severity of the inflammation and the number of bacteria. Warren hypothesized that the true cause of gastritis was an unknown species of bacteria, which according to the dogma at the time, could not exist in the hostile environment of the stomach. While Marshall and Warren were not the first to consider the possibility of a link between microbes and gastric ulcers, nobody had been able to isolate and grow these organisms, so the observations were neglected. The unusually long incubation period was the secret of their serendipitous discovery. The long-standing belief in medical teaching and practice at the time was that stress was the main cause of peptic ulcer disease. To gastroenterologists, the concept of a germ causing ulcers was like saying that the earth is flat. It inflamed not only the multi-billion-dollar drug industry, but the entire field of endoscopy. Their discovery was rejected and took a long time to gain acceptance. The thorniest challenge was proving that the existence of the bacteria found in the ulcers caused gastritis. The bacteria failed to cause ulcers in pigs. As a final resort, Marshall performed a radical experiment. He underwent gastric biopsy to prove that he didn't carry the bacterium, then deliberately infected himself by drinking a glass of the cloudy bacterial culture to show that it in fact caused acute gastric illness. Although Marshall was gutsy, he was not reckless. He had worked out which antibiotics could kill the infection. After a few days, he was ill, nauseated, and vomiting. He was diagnosed with highly active gastritis. Helicobacter pylori was decisively the cause of gastric inflammation. Yet it took another decade for the resistant medical community to stomach this idea. Warren and Marshall's discovery that peptic ulcers are caused by an infectious disease allowed the cure of a major cause of sickness and death in young, otherwise healthy adults. For 33.9K views. View 10,772 upvotes.